Welcome to the University of Magic Online, brought to you by mtgostrat.com. Okay, we continue with our series. Let's talk about how to create your first deck list. Here's the home page for the beta client. You have two options. You can either import a deck list or create one by hand. Start by clicking on Collection. Here's what the collection looks like. You'll notice the cards you own are up at the top, and the various options that we're going to be looking at are down near the bottom. To create one by hand, go ahead and click on Add Deck. This brings up a window. Here's where you can pick how you're going to choose to create this deck. You have an import option. If you want to import a deck list, we'll talk about that later. You also have the Create New options. You can name and format. Deck name, you can choose to name it whatever you'd like. I recommend making it something that makes sense so that when you see it, you can know at a glance what it is. Format, you can choose the format of the deck that you're creating, and that's the different various formats of games. You have standard, modern, commander, and whatnot. For this instance, we're just going to stick with standard. You also can choose a deck box. It has no bearing on the gameplay itself. It's just a colorful addition. Now, things to consider when making a deck. Think about the synergy of your deck. Does each card interact with every other card in the deck in such a way that it will help you win a game? Mana curve. You don't want to have a deck that's full of 5, 6, 7 drops without anything to play early. You also want to make sure that you're hitting your lands on time. We'll talk about deck construction in more in-depth in a future class. It's considered more of a upper level once you start thinking about how viable the deck is. Can it compete? Once you start getting into brewing, there are things to consider beyond just, can I cast what I need? Can I make the deck work? You need to consider the metagame and whatnot. And that's more of an advanced class. We're just going to talk about basic construction right now. You're probably wondering, how do you even begin? Best place to start, online deck lists. People call this net decking because you get the list off some website and you recreate it for your own use. Don't let online elitists bully you for having a proven deck. This might happen from time to time. People say, nice net deck, buddy. Something to that effect when you are playing against them, and more often than not when you beat them with this particular deck. So, the thought behind this is that your deck was not creative enough for use online, which is a bit ridiculous. Not everyone is a genius deck brewer, and also not playing with proven technology, and by that I mean proven interactions that have already won, seems short-sighted. If the only reason you play is to show off your brewing skills, then you should probably showcase that in some kind of format, but to then bully someone else for using that technology is a bit ridiculous. Anyway, it might happen. I just want you to be aware of it. Now, where do you find these decks? Let's talk about this site. TCGplayercom. Full disclosure, I do sell cards on this website, but we're not going to talk about the cards I sell. I just want you to focus on the lists that are available, because they have every kind of format that is played in paper. They have a list, and what they do is they show the top 8 decks for each of the events that have happened recently. You can see the list here. Starts off with the Platinum Series by Hot Sauce, and it goes through some Star City, TCG Player Open, Max Point, Each of these lists contains decks that have proven to top 8. There's Standard, Modern, Commander, and Legacy. When you click on each one of those tabs, you will be given a list of events, and then you can click through it. Now, Commander is more just a list of Commander decks because there's not too many competitive Commander events. This site is dedicated mostly to paper Magic, but you can still use these lists online. As a matter of fact, you'll see the people there who write articles, especially Frank Lepore at the bottom there. They all use Modo to show off the deck creations and whatnot. It's just something that they do. So, you start off by clicking on an event. Let's just click the top one, the Platinum Series by Hot Sauce Games. This gives you their top 8. All you then do is just click on a deck list that looks interesting. Let's just click Esper Control, just so we can kind of go in there. This gives you the deck list. You can also export the deck list. At the bottom, there's various things you can do. MTGO, which is what we're talking about, Apprentice, Magic Workstation, a printable format, a registration sheet, which is nice because you can actually create your own deck lists out on TCG Player. You can just create your account, create a deck list, and you can see a sample hand. You can solitaire the deck. It's actually a really good site, very, very versatile. And if you decide to take this paper version of a deck to an event, you have your own registration sheet that you can print out. It's real nice that it's already done for you. Forum, board format, or even blog paste format. They give you plenty of options. I want you to look at the top. See the cost? It's very expensive. It's not nearly as expensive online, but it's still pricey. You have the dual lands, you have 5 planeswalkers, which are always expensive. Lots of cards in this deck are expensive, but if that's the kind of thing you're interested in, if you're interested in winning events and tournaments and whatnot for Standard, this is a way to go. Another nice thing about the site is if you are searching for cards, you can actually look for a specific card. You don't even have to buy it from this site. It's not important. But let's say you find a card that's very neat, you like it. You can actually search for this card up here where it says enter the card name. And then once you find that card, you can actually look for deck lists that contain that card. It's very useful if you are really into a specific card has caught your fancy. Now, is there an affordable option? Since most anyone watching this is probably new to the format in general, let's talk about some more affordable options. PDCMagic.com holds a standard Pauper tournament, which standard Pauper format is using standard cards, commons only. There's also Gatherling. They have many alternate format events that go on in Gatherling. Some are very affordable. Silver and Black only uses commons and uncommons. Heirloom only uses cards that are inexpensive. And we'll kind of talk about more of that later. Let's go to PDCMagic.com. Here they hold standard Pauper events. And again, standard Pauper uses standard legal cards, only commons. Click on an event number. I want to choose 2305. And here you have it. You have the top 8 list. Something in there, if it looks interesting to you, go ahead and click on that deck name. I'm going to choose the mono black because it's fairly straightforward. Here's the mono black list. You can see how it matched up. You can see some of the casting costs. Mana symbol, it's only black. And there's the deck list itself. You can also download this list in text format, and it works really well. But let's start off by talking about, we'll use this later. So go ahead and download one if you're following along. Download it, remember where you saved it. talk about manual creation first. Set your collection to standard. Over here, we're going to talk about the standard popper list. You can actually set it to standard popper, but this also works. And if you remember back to the list, we needed some Basilica Screechers. Right-click on Basilica Screecher, and you get this menu that pops up. Go ahead and choose Add 1 to Deck, or however many you have. Remember, we needed 4, but since we only have 1, we can add 1 to the deck. So there it is. We have our 1. Again, we need 4. What you have to do is you then just have to click and drag more Basilica Screechers down to your deck. There they are. Now you have the right amount. You repeat this process for all the remaining cards. If you do not have the cards in your collection, what you need to do is click on Quantity at the top. You want to slide the quantity to 0. That shows you all the standard cards. If you look up here in standard, all the standard cards that you don't own, because it sets the quantity to 0, so you can show some that you do and every one that you don't. And again, this will show all standard legal cards. This is a good way to see every card out there that is currently standard legal. Now you just add all the cards, go through the list, you can sort them by name, and pick all the ones you need. There we have it. I filled out the deck list just as it was. I just went through here and drug down all the ones that I needed. That's a pretty tedious process. Let's talk about an easier way of doing this. Again, go back to what we did, click on Add New Deck, and then you get this window. Click on the Import button. It'll bring up this screen where we saved it. Go ahead and double click on the deck list that we exported earlier. Now you see it named it. It named it based on the file that you have. It's pretty easy, mono black. Format is standard. It looks at the cards and will choose the appropriate format for you. And it even shows a deck box based on the majority of the color that's in there. Go ahead and click on OK. Now, you'll notice that we have that deck at the bottom. Let's talk about cards we do not own. Notice how some of the borders are hash marked or slash marked, however you want to describe that. They're striped. What you can do is you can save the cards you do not own to a wish list. Right click in the deck area. Over here, this menu will pop up. And then click on Add Needed Cards to Wish List. Once you have done that, over on the left hand side you'll see Binders. Underneath Binders is Wish List. This will contain all the cards that you add. Let's say you make 4 or 5 decks and you keep adding more and more to the wish list. This will put them all there, and you will be able to see everything that you need. Now with this wish list, we're going to get into how do you obtain the cards that you do not want. That's going to be next time. We're going to talk about some bots. We're going to talk about various websites you can go to. So let's talk about what we've gone over already. How to log in and download and install. We've already talked about how to create your first deck. Next, we're going to talk about how to obtain these cards. Use bots, how to buy from them. There are some free bots, which is pretty good, especially for the standard popper format. Very handy. There's regular bots, which actually take tickets. Tickets is the online currency. We want to talk about price index. That's something you want to look at. You don't want to overspend. This is just a hobby. Again, I doubt anyone who's listening to these videos does this for professional living. Also, we're talking about how to sell your excess cards that you don't want anymore. And that wish list we just created, we're going to use it to obtain the cards we need from the bots. And bots, by the way, is just an automated account that buys, sells, and trades cards. After that, we're going to talk about how to start a game. You can start your own game, how to join someone else's game, and then how to play. We're going to talk about basic gameplay, how to start, how to set stops. Stops is when the system will put a pause in the gameplay for you so that you can then make an action. We'll talk about how to sideboard choices. Not too in depth for this beginner level, but we're going to talk about what to look for. And then we're going to talk about the different types of games. Remember, we've already talked about standard. We've talked about standard pauper. There's classic pauper, modern, Momir, commander. There's several different types, and we'll go into each of those and what makes them different from one another. Alright, that's it for this week's lesson. I hope you enjoyed it. Please go to the website mtgostrat.com. Also, subscribe to this channel. We have lots of videos, and the people who make the videos try to explain while they're playing what they're doing, and everyone tries to be a little bit educational. So, subscribe to the channel, go to the website. I really appreciate you taking time to view this. So, with that being said, have a good day.